Okay. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ann Stiber. I've been designated the hearing officer by Commissioner Michelle Siegel. Also present are Commissioners Nick Boletto and John McKinney. We are here today, Thursday, September 23rd, 2021 at 1:02 p.m. in the matter of Karen E. Murdoch, permittee, Worthington Vineyards, 359 Mountain Road, Somers, Connecticut, permit number LFW105P. And we are here due to a remonstrance hearing regarding a new application for a Connecticut farm winery liquor permit for Worthington Vineyards. Attorney Anderson, if you could please identify yourself for the record.
Caitlin Anderson, Staff Attorney, Department of Consumer Protection.
Okay. And can you identify any witnesses you have?
I have Liquor Control Agent Michelle Paradis on to testify, and that will be the department's only witness.
Okay, thank you. And is the agent for the remonstrance present?
Yes, George Schober.
Okay, and can you identify, actually, given the number of people, I think we can just identify people when they actually testify. I think from what I understand, there's quite a list of people. But the other party we need right now is who is representing Worthington Vineyards?
This is Mark Murdoch and
Karen Murdoch.
Okay. And I'm sorry, did you have an attorney, I thought?
yes.
Yes, I'm here, Your Honor. Excuse me, and it's Attorney Sean Clark on behalf of the Murdochs and Worthington Vineyards.
Okay, thank you.
Worthington Pond.
Okay, today's testimony is given under oath. So all those who will be testifying, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you are about to give concerning the case now in question shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or upon penalty of perjury?
I do.
I do.
Okay, thank you all. Okay, just to briefly explain how we'll proceed, Attorney Anderson will speak first and present her liquor control agent. Then it's the opportunity for the remonstrance to present testimony and evidence. And then lastly, it will be the Murdochs and representatives from Worthington Vineyards. Everyone has the opportunity to ask questions after someone's testified, and the commissioners and I may ask questions at any time. So unless there's any questions, I'm going to turn it over to Attorney Anderson.
We'll know that the parties had indicated they would like to request closing statements. If that is still the case for the other attorneys on the line, and if you could indicate that you'd like a closing statement.
Okay, we typically do that anyway.
Perfect. Making sure that was known. All right. Would the commission take administrative notice of the hearing notice issued for today's hearing? I mean, everyone's here, but could we just enter it as Commission's Exhibit A?
Okay, we'll mark the notice as Commission Exhibit A.
All right. Then I would like to call Liquor Control Agent Michelle Paradis. Good morning. Good afternoon, Agent.
Good afternoon. Yes.
What a day. Could you state your name, title, and business address, please?
Sure. Michelle Gillard Paradise, Connecticut Liquor Control, 450 Columbus Boulevard, Hartford. I am a liquor agent with the department.
And how long have you been with Liquor Control?
I've been with Liquor Control 17 years.
Is part of your job to review remonstrances filed on applications and permits?
Yes, it is.
And are you familiar with the requirements and laws concerning remonstrances?
Yes, I am.
Are you familiar with the laws and requirements for holding a farm winery permit?
Yes, I am.
Did you review the remonstrance petition filed against Worthington Vineyards?
I did.
Did you
Yes.
verify that this was a valid remonstrance signed by 10 individuals over the age of 18 in the town as required?
Yes, I did.
And was this received timely by the department?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Was this remonstrance on a new application, a renewal, or a removal?
A new application.
Was a provisional permit issued for this application?
Yes, there was.
To your knowledge, has there been any enforcement issues on the provisional permit since it was issued?
Not to my knowledge.
Can you briefly summarize the substance of the concerns that were raised by the remonstrants in their petition?
So a few of the concerns were an issue of the road being safe for patrons coming in and out of the property and the impact it would have on the neighborhood. There was also a issue of an appeal concerning the zoning for the farm winery. I believe that was in May. And the reasonable enjoyment of the neighborhood, the people in the neighborhood with traffic coming in and out of the farm winery. Just to note that the property is a recreational area currently, and that's how it's being used. So that's really a summary of the complaint.
All right, I would like to show you a document. Okay, do you see a document on your screen?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, Agent, do you recognize this as the remonstrance petition that you received and reviewed?
yes, it is.
I would like to move that entered as Commission's Exhibit B.
Okay, we'll mark that as Exhibit B.
Okay. All right, and I have one more document for you, Agent.
Sure.
Did you write a report detailing your review of the remonstrance petition?
Yes, I did.
Okay, do you see a document on your screen?
I do.
Is this a fair and accurate copy of the report you prepared in this matter?
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yep.
Great, I would like to move this entered as Commission Exhibit C.
So we'll mark that as Exhibit C.
Thank you. All right. Agent Paradise. Okay, so aside from this remonstrance, are there any other issues that would prevent the final approval of this permit?
Not that I can see, no.
Thank you. I have no additional questions for the agent.
Okay, Commissioner McKinney, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay, Commissioner Beletto, do you have any questions?
When was the provisional permit issued and how long have they been open under the provisional?
I don't have that date in front of me.
Okay.
I can pull that for you if you give me a second. I'll have W105. I can represent that I can just share my screen. I don't have to represent anything. This is the online licensing information for the premise. Application received on 6/24 and the provisional was first issued on 9/3.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Attorney Schrober, do you have any questions for the agent?
I do. Agent, did you notice any issues with any sight lines while you were out at the premises, particularly when you were pulling out of the premises? Did you take any observations as to the sight lines?
So I haven't had the opportunity to go out there for the review before the final permit is issued. So no.
Oh, I'm sorry. I presumed you had been out there before this hearing.
No, I haven't.
Okay, I guess I should have asked that first.
No problem.
So you have not been on Mountain Road in Summers in regards to this permit application at all?
I have not.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
That's all I have.
Okay, Attorney Clark, do you have any questions?
Just real quickly, with respect to the remonstrance, the exhibit, did you actually question each of the opponents with respect to the substantive facts that they allege in their remonstrance, or did you just verify that they had signed those documents and they were residents of the town of Summers?
I just verified their age and that they were residents of the town. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you, Agent Jalar Paradis. Attorney Anderson, do you have anything further at this time?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay. Attorney Schober, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Okay, and so I am not acting as anyone's attorney here. I am acting as the agent for the remonstrance. And I really have three issues to discuss. But one of them, there will be actually more testimony, and I think it makes sense for Ken Pryor, who is on the line, to speak first, and then I believe Eleanor Labine is on the line, and potentially Tom Nesbitt and Michelle Pryor. I think it makes sense because we're all speaking about one of the issues, and then I'm speaking about two other issues. So if that's okay, I would turn it over to any one of our witnesses.
Okay, let me.
But you're not, George, you're not acting as their counsel, you said? I just want
I
to
am
make sure.
not. That is correct.
So they're acting as their own counsel, including the priors?
Well, they're just acting as witnesses in this matter. In this liquor hearing, they are all acting as just.
But when you said that you filed the action on behalf of the remonstrance, that's for everybody. That's for all 10 of those people?
I drafted the petition and I signed it as a remonstrant, and I'm acting as the agent, but not as an attorney.
As an agent in what capacity?
Well,
Their power of attorney?
The liquor control folks request that the remonstrance appoints somebody as an agent, and that's me.
All right. And was there a document that was done to so indicate that that's the case?
No,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
All right, I do see a Ken Pryor on the line whom I can authorize to talk. So,
Hey, when you say on the line, are they on their phone?
so I believe, so I see one phone connection and then two other individuals who are showing up as being able to be viewed on camera.
Okay.
But I know Mr. Pryor did say he was on a landline, so I'm not sure if the landline is also being as well. So I guess we will find out in a minute.
Okay. I just want to make sure he was sworn in as well.
Okay. I'm sure we can ask them if they participated when they, I'm just going to stop the video of our agent in order to get more people on. Okay. I am promoting the person marked as Ken Pryor to participant status. So we'll see if he pops up. And I will also promote Michelle Pryor to panelist. So she should pop up too. And then we can figure out who the landline is.
George Schober,
Do you know who 1413-377-3333 is?
was that a 413 area code? That should be Ken.
Okay.
He had emailed me telling me he would be calling in from work.
Okay, so I'm going to allow the landline to talk. Then, okay, so the landline is unmuted.
Sir, Mr. Pryor, are you there?
I have given it permission to unmute, but he muted himself. Okay, I've unmuted it again.
Can you unmute yourself?
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you identify yourself?
Yes, Ken Pryor, 364 Mountain Road, Somers, Connecticut.
Okay, and I assume you were sworn in at the beginning of the hearing?
Yes, I was.
Okay, thank you.
All right, my family has lived on this property at 364 and 372 Mountain Road for over 50 years. It's a quiet residential area with Gillette Brook running through the property. It's a very quiet area with no streetlights and complete darkness at night. The road is hazardous at best. Deer, turkey, and wildlife are in the road during the day and night. And things changed about 20 years ago when a recreational facility was approved in 2000. The developer proposed a facility that would be used for ice skating, bird watching, hay rides where Cub Scouts, Brownies, school kids could do nature tours. And the primary use was an outdoor recreation facility where somebody could stargaze at midnight. There was no electricity or lighting even in the original plan. He also added that there was going to be no alcohol served, and the town made it clear that this was not going to be a banquet hall. Worthington Pond was approved with this understanding that events were going to be small, low impact, infrequent, no more than 50 people on the property at a time. The subsequent years were a flurry of weddings, receptions, traffic, music, noise, cars turning around on our driveway. Past charity events at the facility drew over 800 guests just for a breakfast, pancake breakfasts, exceeding parking lot and building capacities. Receptions continued to midnight. We even had a plane fly over the house with a happy birthday banner in tow. It was like a circus for several years. Over the next few years, expansion occurred without permits, far exceeding the scope of what was approved. A cease and desist order, court actions followed, halting the sale of alcohol and food, and shutting down a 5,000 square foot tent that was used for indoor events. It was a nightmare. At the zoning meeting this Monday, Mr. Murdoch said there were now over 100 parking spots with the capacity for even more. What I'm hearing is more capacity, more traffic, more impact, more danger on our roads. The sight line from Worthington Pond driveway is horrible. 2 years ago, a vehicle lost control, crossed the center line, hitting a tree, and skidding across the main entrance of Worthington Pond entrance. Earlier this spring, a truck lost control and rested about 200 feet past the main gate and ended up in my neighbor's yard at 372 Mountain Road. I was even a victim of Mountain Road. Going down the hill, I hit ice, lost control on the very same corner, but in the opposite direction. I skidded across where the Murdochs now live and ended up in the field where the vineyards are now located. In 1982 or 83, I can't remember the exact time frame, but my girlfriend then had asked to use my Dodge Coronet and run to her friend's house. She lost control in the snowplow stand while taking the corner on Mountain Road in Dillonback, ended up totaled in the car and almost lost her eye. Soon afterwards, she was hit by a car walking down Mountain Road. Eleanor's, if she's on the line, is probably going to testify about an accident that happened a couple of weekends ago at the corner of Mountain Road and Turnpike. I also witnessed that. Those are just a few of the accidents that immediately come to mind. It's impossible to recall with certainty how many have occurred on Mountain Road, but enough to say it's a common occurrence. As the name implies, Mountain Road is steep, narrow, winding, and dangerous, even on a sunny day, even sober. Bicycles, motorcycles, walkers, joggers are often seen on the road. This is all relevant. Ever since the tent and alcohol were lost in the 2006 lawsuit, it has been quiet. The road has been less traffic and the environment has been unmolested. The alcohol portion was eventually overturned in court appeal, but can only be catered. The one thing this facility needs to be viable is indoor accommodations. The applicant states the effect of the liquor permit has no impact on current town permit for hosting events. This is totally not true. It is everything. It's interwoven. Every winery I've ever been to of some kind has indoor visitors. Since 2006, they have not been able to get off the ground due to the risk of hosting outdoor events. The original developer lost his interest when he couldn't become a banquet facility, and for the past 14 years, with few exceptions, it has operated as intended, as an outdoor recreation facility. I urge you to disapprove this permit, keeping our roads safe, and allowing the town to reconcile the remaining issues with this facility by not adding another layer of activities that were never intended in this residential zone. Thank you for your time. That is all I have for today.
Okay, Commissioner McKinney, do you have any questions for Mr. Pryor?
No, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Boletto, do you have any questions?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, Attorney Clark, do you have any questions?
Just a few. Do you know, Mr. Pryor, when it was that the Murdochs took ownership of the property?
It was earlier this year, I believe.
Okay, so most of the things that you talked about in your testimony and statement that you just provided related to the prior owner, is that correct?
Yes,
All right, and the prior owner was a guy by the name of Dan Rulier, or his company that owned the property, to your knowledge?
yes,
So that would have been, he would have been the person that you had also brought the 2 lawsuits against in connection with the permits that were issued previously, correct?
no. Rulier brought the lawsuit against the town.
Okay, were you involved in those lawsuits in any way?
Yes,
Did you not testify against even the expansion of the property being an outdoor recreational facility when he first brought those permits?
you talking in 2000?
Yeah, going back to 2000.
I was deployed with the
What about
military.
after that? When were you back?
I got back December 2001. Back during that time frame, the town and an applicant was not required to notify abutters of any kind of hearing. So we were unaware that there was any kind of hearing.
Okay. Have you at any point in time in the last 15 years ever spoken in favor of any type of development for the Worthington Pond property?
No,
Do you understand that the application for the commission today is an application for simply a manufacturing permit?
yes,
And they understand the application today does not seek tasting room or anything of that nature. It just simply seeks permission from the commission to manufacture products that are grown and or produced at the facility, Mountain Road facility.
say that again?
So the scope of the hearing today is, as far as I understand, is simply the applicants, my clients, the Murdochs, are simply seeking permission to manufacture spirits at the property.
Okay.
So do you know whether or not they've actually sought, as part of this permit, the right to have outdoor activities, tasting room, music, or anything of that nature?
From what I understand, it said no entertainment.
Okay. So that would be an issue that the commission would have to deal with at a later point in time after the special permit is either granted or denied with respect to the town. Is that fair to say?
Well, the facility already has a special use permit to have events.
That's correct. That special use permit is in place, but we're talking about the special use permit that, at least I'm assuming you testified about, the special use permit that you were at the hearing for this past Monday, correct?
Yep.
And you spoke in opposition to that special use permit at the time of that hearing before the summer's Planning and Zoning Commission.
So this is OBE then. I mean, how can you not have entertainment approved, but have entertainment on the facility?
It's a question of the process by which the applicant has to proceed in order to do that. I mean, I'm not here to give legal advice to you. Obviously, I'm just asking you questions in response to your testimony. Did you draft the remonstrance petition, or was that drafted on your behalf?
I did not draft it.
Was it drafted by Attorney Schober?
Yes.
And are you aware that with respect to the prior claims that Mr. Rulier had, that the court, when there was an appeal taken with respect to the zoning board's decision, did say that there could be alcohol served at the facility, as opposed to questions about the regulations regarding the sale of alcohol under the then zoning regulations for the town of Summers?
I don't know exactly what you're saying. I do understand that they can bring alcohol on to the facility.
So would it be fair for me to say that as to that appeal, the one that was in case number 0440011072, that the town lost that appeal and that Mr. Rulier prevailed on that appeal because of the nature of what was approved as part of that special permit?
No, that was never in the special use permit, the original one. He did win on appeal saying that they could bring alcohol in there though.
Right, but that's because it was not in the special use permit, which you on behalf of the remonstrance have submitted as exhibits to the commission. So I just want to make sure I understand, if you understand that as to the cease and desist order that you referenced in your testimony, that actually was overturned by the Superior Court in that prior action.
The alcohol portion of it was, not
Okay.
the tent.
All right, I have no further questions for the witness. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir, for testifying. Mr. Schober, do you have a preference who testifies next?
I do not.
I'm going to be muting that landline.
Okay. So who else here is present on behalf of the remonstrance?
Is Eleanor Levina out there, or Michelle Pryor?
Michelle Pryor was, but I don't see her anymore. I see Ken Pryor again.
If you're seeing Ken Pryor with the screen, not the phone, I'm thinking that might be Michelle.
Yeah, she if it is, she can control her own functions at this point. I can't do it for her.
Okay.
I'm asking whoever this is to unmute and turn on their video. So I've done all I can do.
Okay.
Other than that, person named Ken Pryor,
Oh.
I'm not seeing anyone else.
Okay. So I can testify at this point then, if that's
Okay.
Okay. I did have one question based on Attorney Clark's question, and I guess I'm confused because with the write-up, with this liquor application, the Murdochs talked about the tasting room, the warming building will be used as a tasting room for serving to the public. So I was not aware that this was only for a manufacturing permit for wine. Can somebody clarify exactly what this is?
Would you like me to have the agent testify as to what an LFW is allowed to do and not do?
Sure.
I'm asking Attorney Stiver, would you like me to recall the agent? Okay.
Yes, please recall the agent.
The agent, Paradise, I'm asking you to unmute and reactivate your camera right now.
Did I reactivate my camera?
It should be a little button down the bottom left-hand portion of your screen for the video, with a little video icon.
Okay.
Here, I can try to ask you to start it, make it easier. There we go. You're popping up.
There we are.
Perfect.
Sorry. I'm so used to Teams.
I know, it's different.
So the LFW.
Let me ask you questions
sorry?
to frame it. Let me ask you questions to frame it. So this application is for an LFW, correct?
That's correct.
And that is a license for a farm winery permit. Is that right?
Farm winery, that's right.
Is a farm winery permit by definition allowed to manufacture wine? Let's keep it simple.
Yes.
And by definition,
Yes.
is a farm winery permit allowed to be open to the public for tastings and consumption of bottles on the premise?
I don't know. They're not.
Don't know.
Manufacturing. You just have to bear with me because we've had some changes and I haven't thoroughly gone through this whole thing.
We have
So,
had recent
there's
changes
been-
that went into effect in July and reclassification of permits. So I will bear with you and I will also pull it up, agent.
Yeah, because I'd have to really go through this whole thing. I haven't been out to any since the new changes have taken effect, so.
I would refer to the
Um,
commission to General Statute 30-16 as in effect on July 1st, 2021.
Yeah.
And I can read it if that would be helpful to the commission.
Please.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Yep.
A manufacturer permit for a farm winery shall in all respects be the same as a manufacturer permit, except that the scope of operations of the holder shall be limited to wine and brandies distilled from grape products and other fruit, blah, 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 blah. As used in this section, farm winery means any place or premise that is located on a farm in the state in which the wine is manufactured and sold. Such permit shall, at the single principal premise of the farm winery, authorize A, the sale in bulk by the holder thereof from the premise where the products are manufactured. As to a manufacturer who produces 100,000 gallons of wine or less per year, the sale and shipment to a retailer. I'm going to summarize some of the extraneous stuff. Subsection C, the sale and shipment by the holder of the permit of wine manufactured by the winery to persons outside of the state. The offering and tasting of free samples of such wine or brandy to visitors and prospective retail customers for consumption on the premise.
Yeah.
Subsection E, the sale at retail from the premise of sealed bottles or other sealed containers of such wine or brandy for consumption off the premise. F, the sale at retail from the premise of wine or brandy by the glass and bottle to visitors on the premise for consumption on the premise. And then sale and delivery directly to consumers in this state. So that I would refer the commission to 30-16 subsection C, subpart 2, that in essence essentially defines all of the functions that a farm winery permit is allowed to do post the 2021 legislative session.
Okay, so they can on premise, there can be consumption on premise, is that correct?
By
Yes.
definition of the permit, yes. Consumption
Yeah.
for consumption by the glass on premise and tastings on premise.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that is clearly in this remonstrance, correct?
They
Unlike-
applied for an LFW, so they would be allowed to. I will say that they did not request endorsements for entertainment or a patio at this point.
Right, but the attorney alluded that it was not included, but it would be because of the definition of the state statute.
I would say that we issue the permit, and what is allowed by the permit would be allowed. Whether or not they choose to engage in those activities would be up to the individual permittee, but from a licensing standpoint, it would be allowed.
Thank you.
Attorney Clark, do you want to clarify that for them?
Well, I think Commissioner Steiber may have just clarified that. I think if you look at the application form and excuse me, Caitlin also did clarify. I think the application doesn't seek the endorsements for patios and live entertainment, but otherwise it's an application for a farm winery.
But it also within the town regulations, correct?
Correct.
And the town regulations come into play here.
Right. There's certain things that the farm winery permit may permit from the state, but then we still need authority from the town to engage in those activities as part of our special use permit application that was alluded to in the prior testimony. So from Mr.
Okay.
Pryor, for example.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner McKinney, and then I'm going to turn it back over to George Schober for his testimony.
Yeah, thank you. So can I just follow up on that last point you made, Attorney Clark? Does the town of Summers, either by ordinance or zoning regulation, prohibit the offering of tasting or the sale on this premises currently?
No, they don't. The regulations that were passed, which are still in dispute, but the regulations that were passed would permit that, subject to certain curtailments and restrictions that they could put on the application. Those regulations were limited in terms of certain discretion, in terms of hours and things of that nature. But as to answer your question, the simple answer is yes, they're permitted. Otherwise, the town wouldn't have been able to sign off on this application for it to even be submitted in the form that it was submitted to the commission.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll go back to Attorney Schober for your
Okay.
testimony.
Thank you. So if I could just get clarification that I think I understand, but based on what Attorney Clark had said, I thought he said that his clients were only seeking to manufacture. Is that, so I guess I'm confused as to exactly what his clients are seeking to do here with this permit. Because what he asked, what he represented to Mr. Pryor was that they were only seeking to manufacture with this permit. And I'd like some clarification so that I can properly present what I wish to present, because I'm not certain what they're trying to do at this point.
Okay, Attorney Clark, can you clarify?
I don't know that I can say anything different than I just said to Commissioner McKinney and to you, but I'll say it again for Attorney Schober. We've submitted a farm winery application as the counsel for the Department of Consumer Protection indicated. It's a LFW. The application just did not seek the endorsements for patio and for entertainment at this point. So I would agree with the commissioner's statement that to the extent that it's an application for an LFW, we're seeking whatever the farm winery application includes. But if I understood Mr. Pryor's testimony correctly, his concerns were about many of the things that would have been encompassed with respect to a patio and or live entertainment, not to mention other things which we think are irrelevant to this application. But that's you know, that was just my point of cross-examining him on that issue.
Okay, so in other words, this permit is not just for the manufacture of wine.
George, we can go round and around on this. I think the commissioner.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to, I mean, I think we've clarified what is, you know, permitted under this particular permit, whether they've asked for that at this point or not. That's not for today's proceeding. It's strictly, you know, this is for a Connecticut farm winery liquor permit and what is permissible under that. So Attorney Schrober, if you can please spell out in more detail what the concerns of the remonstrance are.
But excuse me, Ann, I'm a little confused. Their attorney just stated that they were not seeking that. However, they actually are, because it's included in the permit and the application. So if it's included in the application, they're more than in effect going to take advantage of that. The application is in front of us, and that's what we're seeing at the moment.
Okay, let me try to clarify. You know, Attorney Anderson spelled out what is permissible under the farm winery liquor permit. Whether they've applied for certain aspects of that, you know, at this point or not, that's not the issue. The issue for us is, you know, the Connecticut farm winery liquor permit. It allows what it allows, you know, which includes tastings and consumption on premise. That's permitted under the permit.
Right. Got that. But he's alluding that the other attorney's alluding that that was not part of the process, and it is part of the process, because if they get the wine, if this is approved, they get that as an add-on or as a part of the
Attorney Anderson, and hopefully this is the last clarification. Attorney Anderson.
When the department is going to issue a permit, we issue it in its entirety. We do allow for separate endorsements on a permit that are extras, so to speak, such as entertainment or patio or additional consumer bars. You know, those little subsequent extras that aren't definitional to the permit. What I read before was the definition of the permit. So when we issue a permit from the state, we are giving all those rights to that permit. So from the state's perspective, there would be no problem with a farm winery permit offering tastings on premise. They are allowed to by definition, and we issued that permit. Whether or not they applied for any of the extras like the entertainment or the patio or additional bars, I mean, that's separate from the definition of the permit. So when the state issues the permit, we've issued it. Another way of looking at it is the state establishes a ceiling. Local zoning always has the option to lower our ceiling and not allow certain things to occur on a premise. As the commission's likely aware, up until several years ago, there were still towns, for example, that prohibited Sunday sales. So even though the state allowed Sunday sales, there were still towns that, pursuant to local zoning, prohibited Sunday sales. And so those package stores, even though the state would allow them to be open, could not be open under local law. I'm guessing that there's something like that going on here, where maybe the local rules don't necessarily allow a full grant of what the state would permit for. I mean, I guess that remains to be seen here, but the application was received, it was signed off by town officials. So at this point, the state is going to proceed on the application as with any normal app. I hope that clarifies maybe where some of the confusion is.
But the confusion is clearly they are entitled to have a tasting room if this application is, if we uphold the
State's
application. as-
perspective,
Correct.
they will be allowed to have a tasting room under this permit.
Right. Whether they plan on using it or not, as the attorney keeps saying, or had said, is that even though they may have not plan on it right now, he's going to take use of anything under this application, which will allow them to have a tasting room. So this, it
We'll
will,
have to, I mean, that's a question for them, what they intend to do. once they're-
but it is allowed under this application as it's currently in front of us. That's what I was getting at. So yes,
Yep.
okay,
And the
Yes.
agent is nodding her head as well. So we're in agreement.
thank you.
Okay, again, Mr. Schober, if you can testify at this point.
Yes, Madam Hearing Officer. So the remonstrants have three main issues. One is Mountain Road itself and the sight lines and the condition of the road. The second is the existing special use permit and the common areas on the property that will be used both for the winery and existing events. And the third is with one of the backers, Mark Murdoch. So those are our three issues. And I'm going to start with Mountain Road. And Mr. Pryor testified that and I would agree with him, as I live up in that area and have driven that road probably 5 times a week to come to my office, and then once or twice on a weekend, typically for the last 15 or 16 years. And the commission should note that the road itself, and I'm going to guess that no one other than the applicant, the remonstrance, and the applicant's attorney, no one else on this Zoom has driven on Mountain Road in summers, but it is a very narrow road. It's as narrow as 18 feet wide in places. There are cliffs along the side of the road. As the road winds up the mountain, there are actually cliffs. There's no guardrails. If you drive off the road, your fall will be broken by trees and ultimately a brook on the right-hand side as you're heading up the mountain. It's a serpentine road. It winds. It's unlit. And it's steep. There are several places where the grade is greater than 10%, and 10% is kind of the number where roads become problematic, and they become problematic for emergency vehicles, and they become problematic particularly in bad weather, in winter weather. And the actual sight lines, when you not only to the premises itself, but there are roads and driveways along the way up Mountain Road. Halley Lane is one road in particular where the sight line is absolutely horrible for somebody coming down the mountain from where the winery would be to get to the center of Summers. Now, in 2016, the town undertook a major reconstruction project of Mountain Road. And you would think, well, that's great. We have a very nicely paved road now. But what happened is, with that reconstruction, there was no widening or straightening of the road, but it is beautifully paved so that the average speed limit has probably increased 10 miles an hour since that time, because there are no more potholes or ruts or anything else. It's as smooth as glass. So it's speeding bullets heading down that road. The entrance to the site itself, I have exhibits I and J, which are photographs, and I don't know if we can get those up on the screen, or I don't know what your procedure is.
Did you
Yeah, just
submit
tell
these
me.
to, yes, anything you submitted prior to the hearing to Attorney Anderson, she will have access to and can put up.
What
Okay.
numbers again? 8.
Exhibit I,
Okay, I, and you said J?
and then J.
Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, here's exhibit I. Now let me rotate.
Beautiful. So that is heading southbound on Mountain Road. And the mailbox that you see on the left of the road is actually Ken Pryor's mailbox. And so there's a grade there, and I've submitted a survey map that I'll have put up shortly. But the grade there, and it's tough to see in this picture, is actually as you start coming down the hill, it's about a little bit over 10%. And down past the telephone pole is the entrance to Worthington Pond, but you can't see it. And not up until you get a little bit farther can you actually see the entrance. And you're well under 200 feet, which is the Summers driveway regulation, 200 feet. But really, there needs to be a traffic study done that would take into account the average speed. Now, the speed limit's 35, but the average speed is well in excess of that. It's probably 45 or 50, just based on my personal experience of being tailgated at anything under 40, even going up the mountain. But in any event, the sight line is absolutely horrendous. You can't see the driveway down there, and the driveway is well before the curve down at, farther into the picture. And unless anyone has any questions, we could go to Jay.
Do you want to formally mark this?
Oh, yes, thank you. Could we mark that as I'm not sure what I guess it would be maybe D.
I mean, can we keep it as Remonstrance I for now, Ian?
If that's easier.
I think that's
They're
easier.
already marked. They're already marked.
He did, yeah, mark everyone separately with a letter.
All right, just so that I think that'll make it easier. We'll keep that as a Remonstrant Exhibit I.
And here's your J.
So Exhibit J is coming up Mountain Road from the center of Summers. You're heading northbound at this point. And you can kind of make out past the telephone pole, there is a sign for Worthington Pond. It's awful hard to see, but you come up around the curve, and again, it's just a horrendous sight line as you're driving up, and you're heading up the mountain, and really, again, very unsafe. So I would ask that be marked as well.
I just want to, can you clarify where in this picture is the vineyard?
So, well, the vineyard is on a separate property that is before this. It's not in the picture, the actual where they've planted grapes. But then there's Worthington Pond. So if you see a mailbox and you see a telephone pole, and if you look past the telephone pole just to the right, you can almost make out a sign that says Worthington Pond.
There?
Yes. And that's the entrance to the left, the driveway onto the farm property, or the winery, the proposed winery property. That's about 80 acres. But the grapes, the vineyard is down south of you at this point.
Okay, but that going left is the entrance to the winery. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly correct.
Okay.
So if that could be marked as J.
We'll have that marked as J, Remonstrance Exhibit J.
And then I would ask that Exhibit G be brought up. And this is a survey map. When the town undertook the reconstruction of Mountain Road in 2016, it had survey prepared from the intersection with Battle Street at the bottom of the mountain all the way to the Stafford town line past the winery. And so this is sheet number 54 out of about, I think, 120. They're not all of the survey. It had, several details of catch basins, et cetera. But the first two pages are just the title block of the map for reference. These are 24 by 36 inch surveys. And I had asked Attorney Anderson if there's some way that I could submit this without it being electronic, but the only way that I could do this apparently was electronic. So that's what I did. And I had to cut it up. And I put in the two of the portions on 8.5 by 11. These are to scale. I did not reduce or enlarge these documents, but so that you can actually scale out. And what the street shows, the pages 3 and 4 of Exhibit G, this shows coming down the mountain right before the winery entrance. So you're headed southbound, and you can actually scale it out with a ruler. It's 1 inch equals 20 feet. And so you can do a rise over run to calculate the grade, and the grade is over 10% as you come down the hill right before the winery entrance. And so I just wanted the commission aware of that. What I didn't do was, I have several other sheets, but I didn't feel like it was worthwhile to make copies like this of the sheets to show other places in the road where the grade is greater than 10%. If anyone goes out there and drives it, it's obvious that it is. The condition of this road speaks for itself. So I would ask that this be introduced as Exhibit G.
So we'll have that marked as Exhibit G.
And then if we could have Exhibit H. And again, not ideal in that I had to cut this up, but this is 3 pages from the town's GIS, the Geographic Information System that the town has. And you can go onto the Summers website, and these are US geological maps. I think it's USGS, United States Geological Surveys. And page 1, which I've marked as 1, starts at the intersection of, could we have it come down just a little? Thank you. It starts at the intersection of Battle Street, Turnpike, and Mountain. Battle turns into Turnpike, and Battle turns into Mountain, heading north up the hill. Battle is it's a short road to the center of Summers at that point. But you can, what I'm trying to show here, and they're very light, unfortunately, with the scanning, even though I had darkened up my copy, but pages 1, 2, and 3 bring you all the way up to the winery site. But there are topographic lines along the side of Mountain Road, and it shows the steepness, the cliff I was talking about on the right-hand side as you heading north. But then all the way up, there are cliffs, and you can tell that. And on page 2, Gillette's Brook is identified. It is as well on page 3. But if we could go to page 2. You'll see Gillette's Brook, and you'll see those topographic lines, how close they are on both sides of the road. And it's a cliff leading down to that brook, to Gillette Brook, off of Mountain Road. And again, keep in mind, and you can see Mountain Road, how it curves. And again, in many, many places, it's 18 feet, 19 feet, a little bit under 18. Maximum's typically about 20 or maybe 21 feet. This is not a wide road per any stretch of the road. So I would ask that if no one has any questions, that Exhibit H be admitted.
Okay, we'll mark that as Remonstrance H.
And that's what I have for my discussion on Mountain Road. The next topic that I wanted to turn to was the existing special use permit that is on the property that I'll refer to as Worthington Pond. And there is a pond on there on the property, and it's a good sized piece, about 80 acres, give or take. And I would ask that that we bring up Remonstrance Exhibit A, which is a special use permit. Now, this is a special use permit for the Worthington Pond property that was issued to Daniel and Jane Roulier in December of 2000. And this is in a residential zone, and the residential zones in Summers really do not allow commercial activities. And so what happened is at the zoning meeting, and we have a separate planning commission and a separate zoning commission in Summers, but the zoning commission issued this special permit, and it's for an outdoor recreation area at 359 Mountain Road. And when Mr. Rulier got the approval for this, he convinced the commission that he needed to be able to host commercial events in order to make some money to fund the outdoor recreational area. And so the commission, the regulations don't allow it, but the commission approved number 3. Approval is granted with the understanding that private parties and events, corporate meetings, and wedding parties are to remain an accessory and subordinate use to the primary use of outdoor recreation area. So you heard Mr. Pryor testify as to what occurred there when, after Mr. Rulier received this special use permit, and you've also heard how it has been relatively quiet lately after the town sort of reined in some of the activities that were going on, and you know, Mr. Rulier challenged that in court, and his tent was deemed to not be allowed. And of course, it isn't allowed under the summer zoning regs. So the special use permit, you'll see in number 1 that the closing hours, and this was, if you were to read the transcript, and I didn't introduce the 81 pages of the 2000 hearing transcript into evidence, but if you were to read it, it was for stargazing and things of that nature, so the Boy Scouts could go out there at night. But the closing hours are Sunday through Thursday, no later than 11 p.m. and Saturday, and Friday and Saturday, closing no later than midnight. So that still remains in effect. And unfortunately, the existing special use permit, because it's still in place, this is the same property where the proposed winery is going to be. And so the winery, the farm winery, and any tasting room, any patio areas being used, you know, anyone who buys a bottle of wine and goes and picnics, whatever, that's supposed to stop at 8, but the facility is allowed to stay open until midnight on Friday and Saturday, and until 11 on Sunday through Thursday. And that's a big issue for the Remonstrance. I'm not sure exactly how that gets policed, particularly when you throw in wedding receptions, parties, things of that nature. How is it separated? There is one driveway that will be used for, there's one driveway into the Worthington Pond facility, and that's going to be used for everything. There are no plans, to my knowledge, of any additional driveways or any sort of segregation on the property. And the Murdochs have started a special use permit application for the farm winery with the Summer Zoning Commission. And we had the first public hearing this past Monday night, and they presented plans at that meeting, and it doesn't show any other driveway. It doesn't show any segregated areas. So the parking lots that are there for the over 100 cars, those will be used for both the winery events that are going on. Any bathrooms will be used for both. The buildings will be used for both. The existing warming room, as they call it, or warming building that they will be hosting events in, and that they will be having tastings in. The tent that they want to put up will be used for both. The winery itself, where they manufacture the wine, will be used for both. So we're just not sure how that works, what the commission would do to assure the Remonstrance and other residents in the area that this winery is not going to be operating until midnight or 11 p.m. And really what we have there is a commercial facility in a residential zone. And there are events that are happening now. In fact, I would ask that could I have that entered, please, as, I guess, Remonstrance Exhibit A?
the zoning commission, is it already marked as A?
I marked it as A, but I'm not sure.
I just want to make sure we're being consistent. So we'll recognize that as remonstrant exhibit A.
If we could go to exhibit E, remonstrance exhibit E. This is an email dated June 22nd of 2021 from Jennifer Roy, who is the zoning enforcement officer of the town of Summers. And she sent an email that's at the bottom of the page to Mark Murdoch. The zoning commission was interested in what kind of events were being run out at Worthington Pond at the present time, back in June. And so Mr. Murdoch responded to her that although he didn't know exactly what an event was, the following items that might be event, or the following events that might be events, were listed. And you'll note wedding ceremonies and 2 receptions. One's identified as under 10 people. Presumably, the other 2 wedding ceremony and receptions were greater than 10 people. And so there are activities out there now, and there's nothing that says that these activities have to be shut down by 8 p.m. when the winery would have to be shut down. And again, that's a concern. I'd also ask if we could bring up, I'd ask that that be entered as remonstrance exhibit E.
Okay, we'll have that marked E.
And if we could then go to remonstrance exhibit B.
Is that B as in boy? Oh, okay, thank
B
you.
as in boy. Now, this is the Worthington Pond Farm website, and screenshots of the website. And if you go through, it talks about what's available out there at the pond. And it talks at the last page, says to contact Karen and Mark Murdoch if you want to host your event there. And weddings are an event that is listed here to that can be hosted there. So just wanted that in, if we could have that entered as exhibit remonstrance B.
Okay, we'll have that entered as B.
And if we could then go to remonstrance C. The folks on the left of this picture are Karen and Mark Murdoch. Karen's in the center, Mark's on the left. And this is at a bridal expo where prospective brides and or grooms go to these expos to identify potential places to hold your wedding. And so this was the Murdochs at this particular event. So if that could be marked as C, and of course that's to be held, you'll see the Worthington Pond Farms sign in the background of this picture. And if that could be marked as C, and then we could go to D.
Okay, we'll have that marked as C.
The first page of D is a picture, and you're not going to be able to identify, but Mark Murdoch is in the picture, sort of in the middle of the picture, but that's not important. If we go to the second page of this, down at the, I'm sorry, he's not on the first page, he's on the second page. In the sweater in the middle, facing the camera, that would appear to be Mark Murdoch, but in any event, right below the picture, the text is, I was happy to meet, this was the author of this article, I was happy to meet some new people last night, including Karen and Mark Murdoch. They're opening Worthington Vineyard and Winery in Summers, Connecticut, where they also hope to host weddings and other events. So this facility is really being marketed for weddings and parties and things of that nature. And that is our biggest concern. remonstrance and the neighbor's biggest concern. But if we could have that marked as D, as in dog.
Okay, we'll mark that as D.
So again, I just bring up, we don't know how the Murdochs will be held accountable to stay within the law of the 8 p.m. Guidelines for a farm winery when there's all of these other events going on the same property with the same parking lot, with the same buildings, with the same driveway. Now, last, my final area that I wanted to touch on was that we don't believe, we believe, I believe, it's a privilege to have a liquor permit, to be issued a liquor permit. It's not a right, it's a privilege. And you should be above reproach, and everything that you do should be above reproach if you're going to be awarded a liquor permit. And first, I would direct the commission's attention to Exhibit F, Remonstrance Exhibit F. And in particular, if we could go to page 13.
First of all, what is this?
Oh, I'm sorry. So this is, let me identify it. Yes, this is the write-up for the special use permit proposal that is currently pending before the Town of Summers Zoning Commission. So the Murdochs have applied for a special use permit for the farm winery, and they did a narrative as part of their application to the Summers Zoning Commission. And this, again, we had the first night of the public hearing Monday night, and this is in the record of that hearing. So if we could go to page 13. If you'll see the paragraph that is entitled Noise. Like most wineries in the area, music will be provided as background entertainment for our winery visitors, either through recorded music or occasional acoustical singers. Now that is in direct contravention to what is in the application for the liquor permit, which says type of live entertainment, the box no is checked. So, and in section 9 of the liquor permit application, there are boxes that you for the type of live entertainment. And the first one is acoustics, which they're saying to the Town of Summers that this is what we're going to be doing, but they're saying to you folks that we're not going to be doing this. Now, I don't know which is true, but this is a problem. And there are going to be, and there, in fact, Mr. Murdoch testified at the Monday night hearing that there were disc jockeys for weddings. And of course there were disc jockeys for weddings. I mean, when you have a wedding reception, you have typically some sort of music, whether it's a live band, whether it's a disc jockey. So, you know, we believe all of those boxes should be checked. And if the Murdochs want live entertainment, they should be honest with you folks and tell you that. Again, and I don't, you know, they get their liquor permit and it says no live entertainment approved by the Town of Summers. There's almost no enforcement in the Town of Summers. There's going to be bands, there's going to be disc jockeys, there's going to be acoustic. They come right out and tell the Town of Summers that as their winery, they're going to do this. So we have an issue with that.
You want that entered?
Yes, thank you.
That would be F as in Frank.
Okay, thank you.
Now, one more thing, and I hate to go backwards, but just jumping back, this is not really a farm. This is an outdoor recreation area. And in fact, there's no vineyards planted, to my knowledge, on this property. They're all on an adjacent property. It's only 2 acres that have been planted. There may be 80 acres here, but it's not being farmed. And in fact, if we go back to this exhibit, if we're still on this exhibit F, and we go to page 10, and Mr. Murdoch testified to this at the Monday night hearing, but if we go into the vineyard operations section on page 10, and in that first paragraph of vineyard operations, the third sentence, or well, fourth line, we have already planted 2 acres of grapevines. Well, that's exactly what they have planted per their testimony on an adjacent piece of property, not here. And in fact, if we turn to page 5 of this exhibit, about halfway down the page, the second paragraph, the last line of the second paragraph says, we plan to reestablish the property as a working farm. And they're reestablishing it because it is not established as a working farm. It was a farm many, many years ago, but it has not been a farm, since. And so, and again, it's not a farm right now. So I just wanted to get that in the record. If we could go to Exhibit K. Oh, and we're entered in, right? Exhibit F is entered?
Yes.
Thank you. Exhibit K is, it's an email that was sent from Ken Pryor to Jennifer Roy. Actually, I think there was a series of emails, but I've only included the first page, but it has to do with a wedding that was held during the middle of COVID at Worthington Pond, August 20th of 2020, when the governor's executive orders were in full swing, and so was COVID. And if we can scroll down through the pictures, what you will see is an event that was illegally held by the Murdochs at Worthington Pond. It was a wedding and a wedding reception that should have never been held under the COVID guidelines or the executive order. So if we could have that entered as Exhibit K.
Okay, we'll mark that K.
And believe the final exhibit that I have is Exhibit L.
Yes, I believe you've gone through all the others.
Thank you. So L is an agreement, it's a consent order with the State Elections Enforcement Commission, where Mr. Murdoch violated the law regarding elections and campaign signs. And it goes back to 2011, so it's quite a while ago. But it gets to my point that this backer, Mr. Murdoch, is not forthright and he can't follow the rules. This is not someone that should be handed a liquor license. There should be no liquor permit granted to Mr. Murdoch. So unless anybody has any questions, I would like to make a closing statement after.
No. Okay,
sorry?
no closing statement now. That'll be at the end for both parties.
Yes, that's
Okay.
what I meant, after everybody was done.
Okay. Commissioner McKinney, do you have
Wait, was this actually entered as Exhibit L?
Yes,
I apologize. So, yes, we'll mark that as Exhibit L.
thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Do you have any further testimony before I ask people if they have questions?
I don't.
Okay. Okay, Commissioner McKinney, do you have any questions?
I do, thank you. Mr. Schober, are you, with respect to Exhibit A and your second point regarding the special use permit, are you making the claim that there is something about the special use permit that would prohibit us from issuing a farm winery permit?
I don't know that, to answer your question, I'm not certain, because I'm not certain. I am not that familiar with how this system works. I've never been involved with the Liquor Commission before in my over 25 years of the practice of law. All I know is that we have a permit that was issued in 2000 that is ultra virus. It never should have been issued in the first place. It violates the summer zoning regulations. It did then and it did now. But my concern is that given the guidelines that are set out in this permit, Commissioner McKinney, I'm concerned with the intermingling of the winery events and the winery attendance and activities and the other events that are being hosted on the site. And I don't know how the commission guarantees I don't know how there's enforcement.
Right. So your concern is the special use permit allows them to stay open till 11. The farm winery permit would prohibit sales after, I guess, 8 o'clock. What do you do?
Correct.
So you don't have any legal standing that we could be prohibited, but that's a concern of yours.
That's correct. I'm not certain if there's legal standing or not.
So similar to a grocery store being open till midnight, but not being allowed to sell beer after 8 o'clock. Those things are inconsistent, but it's that type of concern for you.
Yes, I think this is much different than that, but it is as far as I think that's a heck of a lot easier to enforce because someone going through the grocery store and buying something has to check out at a register and they shouldn't have anything in their hand. But if you're at a wedding and you have, there's a tent set up and there's a caterer with alcohol, I don't know whether that's farm winery caterer and remember, this isn't necessarily open for public, the public to just walk on after 8 o'clock if they're, I don't know whether anybody can just go there. Whereas unless someone's been banned from a particular grocery store, anyone can walk in.
Okay, and I guess my last question is on Exhibit D, when you talked about how they are currently marketing the property for weddings. Are they currently allowed to have weddings on the property under their special use permit?
They are as an accessory use to the outdoor recreation area. So they are allowed to do that in limited scope. It's not supposed to be the primary.
And are you aware if they currently market the place prior to seeking the farm wine permit for weddings?
They are marketing it. Their website is up and they're hosting weddings now. In fact, Exhibit E lists 3 weddings for the month of October.
And with respect to, sorry, I do have one more question. With respect to your third point, actually a couple more questions. With respect to your third point regarding the suitability of the backer or the permittee, you mentioned that there was a wedding that you said violated the COVID rules in place. Are you aware of anyone who made a complaint regarding that occurrence?
Well, Ken Pryor made a complaint to town officials, but not to anyone at the state, to my knowledge.
Okay. And did the town do anything with that complaint?
No.
Okay. And with respect to Exhibit L, we had scrolled through it very quickly. Can you tell me what the election enforcement fine was for and what the fine was?
Yes, it was, I believe it was just $100. And it was for not placing the proper identifying information on the bottom of a campaign sign for an individual who was running for first selectman in the town of Summers.
Okay, and was Mr. Murdoch the candidate or the treasurer?
I'm not sure if he was the treasurer. He was not the candidate. That I can, and I'm not sure that he was the treasurer, but he was somehow involved with the sign.
Okay, because I have a little understanding of our election laws.
I know you do.
And they hold candidates and treasurers liable, not anyone else. So I'm assuming then if he wasn't, we'll find out from Mr. Murdoch, but I'm assuming he's the treasurer then for that. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Biletto, do you have any questions? Oh, you're on mute.
I was trying to make you happy, Ann. I'm sorry. You had said earlier that the original issue, the permit that was issued illegally or improper. Why was that? Or why do you
Well,
understand that?
It violated the town of Summers zoning regulations. In other words, in a residential zone, you can't have these commercial activities such as wedding receptions, et cetera. And the reason it was issued was, as Mr. Pryor testified to, he was deployed at that point in time and was not aware of what was going on. And so he was overseas, I believe. And so Mr. Rulier is a big fish in the town of Summers and was able to convince the commission that he should be allowed to do this. And the commission went along with that. And it was unfortunately issued, and that's where our problems lie.
Just, okay, but the town did sign off on that permit back in, the town zoning gave the approval and did sign off on that permit when it was issued.
That's
originally.
correct.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, what do you think this property should be used as, if not a winery, wedding facility, et cetera?
Well, I think that a winery, I think certainly a farm, with the sightline issues, I mean, it would certainly make a beautiful property for some high-end homes. You can't get a lot of homes in there simply because of the sightline with trying to punch a road in, and the town has a 1,200-foot cul-de-sac limit. Certainly there's a shortage of housing in the state of Connecticut right now. And the town of Summers, we're seeing we could use more kids in our school system and more tax revenue actually from the homes. I know that's not what people usually hear, but we've been hemorrhaging students since the time we moved here 16 years ago. When my son was in second grade, the overall student population has continued to decrease. It could continue to be used as an outdoor recreation area. It could potentially be used as a farm winery if it could meet all of the regulations and could be done in such a way so as not to operate past 8 p.m. for anything going on there. So there are a variety of, I mean, it's residentially zoned, so it certainly could be used for residences.
So you're saying you're not against a winery or a facility there if it fits in the guidelines that you're looking at before 8 o'clock, closing before 8 o'clock and fitting into some of the other requirements?
Well, I think at this point, until the Murdochs were willing to give up their existing special use permit that allows 11 and midnight events, and until such time as the weddings stop and they agree not to hold them, then I would have to say no on a winery, no on any sort of commercial use. And again, I am still very concerned about Mountain Road. I don't think it's appropriate for people to be drinking and driving down Mountain Road. And I know that at a farm winery, people may not tend to get drunk the way they do at weddings, but it's still a very dangerous road in the best of conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, before I turn it over to Attorney Clark, I just want to make sure, it's clear that zoning's proceedings are separate and apart from this. We don't relitigate what zoning did or what they will do. As Attorney Anderson, stated earlier, we have our requirements and what we look at. And if the town or the zoning commission has different requirements, those are theirs, they're not ours. Attorney Clark, do you have any questions for Mr. Schober?
Yes, I do. I would note at first that I know the commission has broad discretion in terms of accepting evidence in terms of this matter, but I would submit that most, if not all, the evidence that Mr. Schober submitted on behalf of the remonstrance is probably irrelevant, probably would be deemed irrelevant by a court. It's really not probative of the issues that relate specifically to this permit. So I'll try to keep my questions of Mr. Schober confined to that. Mr. Schober, I'm assuming that your testimony was that of a fact witness in terms of a resident of the town of Summers who's raising an objection with respect to this winery. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you weren't giving legal opinions or expert opinion testimony with respect to the roadway issues or any of the zoning issues at this point?
Well, I don't know whether I was giving, I was trying to give factual, whether or not I gave any legal opinions, I don't know, but certainly for the roadway, I'm not an engineer and but I just a layman that
Fair enough.
drives that road almost every day.
So there are a lot of tobacco farms in Summers, are there not?
There's not, I wouldn't say there's a lot of tobacco farms. I think there are a couple of tobacco farms, but most of the tobacco farms in Summers, I think have closed up and other things are being farmed on those farms. There are a lot of farms in
So
general.
you don't know anything about Lindy Farms or any of the tobacco farms that are in Summers in terms of how much acreage they hold?
Well, Lindy Farms is not a tobacco farm. Lindy Farms is a horse farm. But there is a lot of acreage that one particular farmer owns that is used as tobacco. I don't know how much he has, whether he has 500 acres or so.
And those farms would be generally operated in residential areas, correct?
Yes.
Okay, but they operate for a commercial purpose.
Yes, they're farms.
And some years, like this year, the farms are going to have some deficits because there's going to be a lot of crop damage from rain. And some years they can be profitable as a commercial enterprise. Is that fair?
Well, I don't know whether this year they have deficits or not. I'm not a farmer and I don't represent those particular farmers, so I don't know if they have deficits.
But you would agree that they're commercial enterprises in nature.
I would agree that they farm and they sell their product.
Okay. Are you familiar with Kent Falls Brewing?
I am not.
Are you familiar with Hops on the Hill?
I am not.
Are you familiar with Crystal Ridge?
No.
Are you familiar with access to farm wineries in areas where farms, either exist or now currently exist?
Not particularly. I generally don't go to farm wineries. I don't think I've been to one in over 20 years.
Okay, fair enough. Have you said, and I just want to clear some of your testimony before, you said that at one point in time, since the roadway improvements were made in 2006, I believe it was, to Mountain Road,
16.
that people, 2016?
Yes.
Oh, so like 5 years ago.
Yes, it's recent.
Okay. Recently, okay. So, but your experience is that you said that people tend to drive a little bit faster on Mountain Road. Is that correct?
A lot faster.
All right. And I think you said that you were even tailgated by somebody when you were doing 40 miles an hour, if I understood your testimony correctly.
Well, my testimony, I should have been, and I think this is what I said, that if I'm going under 40, I'm always tailgated or almost always tailgated if there's another car.
Okay.
That's what I meant to say anyway.
All right. But you conceded that the speed limit's 35 miles an hour, correct?
My understanding is it's 35, yes.
All right. So then how is that enforced by the town of Summers?
Well, it's really not.
Okay.
In other words, I'm not certain that I have ever seen a police officer on the side of the road on Mountain Road enforcing the speed limit on Mountain Road.
But even if you went over the speed limit at over 35, but somewhere between 35 and 40, you would be violating the speed limit, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. The full size, we don't have the benefit of those full size 24 by 36 drawings that you had, that you were trying to illustrate the topographical changes with respect to Mountain Road. But to your knowledge, were those drawings approved by the engineering department in the town of Summers?
They were drawn by an engineer. In fact, you can see the title block of, I believe, of the engineer out of Glastonbury. The entire set of plans, 120 sheets, give or take, were all done by the engineering firm out of Glastonbury. And then Jeff Board, the town engineer, reviewed and approved all of these. And the project was over $2 million. So, I mean, there were a lot of sets of eyes on these plans.
Okay. So they approved the differences in grade and paving and whatnot.
Well, there was no difference in grade. In other words, they didn't change the grade on Mountain Road except for one location, which was the intersection with Root Road and Eaglebrook Drive, where they took out a big hill that was right in the middle of the intersection. I shouldn't say a big hill, but it was quite a bump,
Okay.
like a ski mogul.
All right, so let me clarify my questions. But at some point in time, some professional engineer signed off on repaving with respect to the existing grades. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. nowhere in either Mr. Pryor's testimony or your testimony did I hear you mention any specific evidence with respect to either prior weddings from rule year or prior events that my clients have hosted from their special permit about there being any particular accident that occurred anywhere near Worthington Pond that was directly related to somebody leaving Worthington Pond. Is there something I'm missing here? Is there some direct correlation between Mountain Road and Worthington Pond? Because I haven't seen any evidence that you can suggest that somebody was involved in an accident that left Worthington Pond, at least as far as the record is concerned at this point.
And that's correct. I have no evidence that someone leaving Worthington Pond was in an accident. They may have been, but I don't know that. But there are numerous accidents on Mountain Road, and I don't know whether Mr. Pryor has any evidence of that or not, but I do not.
Okay. And just moving on for a second, clearly, I think you've mentioned and made it very clear that you have an issue with the existing special use permit. But you're aware that that special use permit not only was issued by the town, but also was additionally litigated by the town in Mr. Roulier in 2 subsequent lawsuits. Is that correct?
Well, it's not exactly correct, if I might explain.
Go ahead.
Portions of the special use permit, or what was allowed under the special use permit, were litigated, but the actual legality of the special use permit itself was not litigated. And so it's my belief that that special use permit was void ab initio. It should have never been issued. And I don't think that's been challenged, but it may yet be challenged.
And you're a lawyer. You said you've been practicing for 25 years, and it sounds like you're giving legal opinion at this point. But isn't it true that if the special use permit was issued by the town and it wasn't lawfully appealed or challenged at a later point in time, and even the case that I referenced before with respect to Mr. Pryor's testimony involving the issue about the service of alcohol, the court, Judge Gleason, recognized that the validity of the special use permit stands if it's not specifically excluded by the town of Summers zoning regulations?
Well, it is excluded by the town of Summers zoning regulation. That was only as to the alcohol. Again, it was not litigated as to whether or not the special use permit was properly issued to begin with. And so because it was void ab initio, in my opinion, it can be litigated at some point in time, and you are not barred by the statute of limitations. You're not barred by the 15-day appeal period after legal notice is published.
But
So
you submitted a copy of that special use permit. Are you aware of any pending legal challenge to the substantive right for the town of Summers to issue that special use permit?
Not yet.
Do you know who the owner is of Worthington Pond?
Not off the top of my head. I have it somewhere.
And do you know whether the owner of the 4 parcels that comprise Worthington Pond are the same?
I don't. Again, I believe I have that information somewhere, but not in front of me.
And if I told you that it was Summers Mountain Properties that's owned by Mark and Karen Murdoch, all 4 of the pieces, would that surprise you? Does that sound familiar?
I know at least some of the property is owned by that entity. But
What
whether
evidence do you
all-
have before this commission that any of the parcels, including the ones that you referenced about where the wine grapes are owned by somebody other than Summers Mountain Properties?
I did not put anything into evidence as to who owns the properties.
Okay. And incidentally, you own property in Summers, correct?
I do. Actually, I personally do not.
Okay, so do you own a residential piece of property?
My wife does. So I'm a resident of Summers, but I don't actually own it.
So who is GSC Real Estate Development Corporation?
Nobody that I know of, but if you're referring to GCS Land Development Corporation, that is a company that I own. It's a legal entity though. So the land, I have land titled in that company in the town of Summers, but not me personally.
Okay, but that would be in a residential zone, correct?
That
Your
is
house is
correct.
Rocky Mountain, Dundee, or whatever it is that you live at. That's a residential zone, is it not?
It is.
Okay. Do you have any information that which would suggest that the Murdochs, prior to seeking this application to apply for a farm winery, have in any way, shape, or form offered for sale any wine that they've made themselves at any wedding or function that's gone on at Worthington Pond?
I do not.
I have no further questions, Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Clark. Attorney Schober, before I turn it over to Attorney Clark, I just want to make sure you had everyone testify that wished to testify. Is that correct?
I will
Well,
say that there is now someone else on the line, Eleanor Labine.
she would be one of our witnesses if she's able to testify.
Okay. Ms., is it Labine or Labine?
I'm switching her over right now.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, hello, ma'am. Can you please identify yourself for the record?
Hi, my name is Eleanor Labine, and I'm sorry I'm having, oh, there's my video. Okay. My name is Eleanor Labine. I live at 9 Mountain Road.
And you were sworn in at the beginning of this hearing, is that correct?
No, I was not. I was late on the call. I'm very sorry.
Okay, well, if you are going to be testifying, you need, all testimony is given under oath. So I'll administer the oath to you right now. Please, right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you are about to give concerning the case now in question shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or upon penalty of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if you would like to.
I am not an expert, but my family has lived on Mountain Road since 1953. In layman's terms, it's so steep that my mom used to have a game when I was a kid. We'd get into the family station wagon driving back from Stafford, and at the top of the mountain, she'd shift into neutral and we'd coast to the bottom, and she'd, make it a game like, let's see if I don't have to touch the gas. And usually we could get home to our place at the bottom of the mountain, because I live at the intersection of Mountain where it starts with Turnpike. My section of the hill, in layman's terms, I don't have access to grade, is so steep that my neighbor used to use a chain and winch to help cars up it during ice storms. And then the town told him to stop doing that, so he didn't do that anymore. It's about 300 feet from my driveway on Mountain Road to the top of this big hill that I can't see over when I'm turning left to get into my drive. So if there's oncoming traffic coming from the winery, I can't see what's coming down the road. If I'm waiting. So in other words, I could be starting from a dead stop to turn left. So just as a mom, my big concern is oncoming traffic, which has a driver influenced by alcohol. He'll only have 300 feet to notice me and stop. And I was looking at all this scary data online earlier about how it takes the brain, part of a second to register a sight, and then another part of a second to put the foot on the brake, and how much time is consumed in the stopping of a car. And if it's a wet day, there may not be enough time, depending on how much momentum this guy has coming towards me. I have a friend, my roommate for 3 years, who was killed in a head-on collision with a drunk driver. he actually wasn't killed right away. She was alive for about an hour while they tried to cut her out of the car using the jaws of life. And it was a horrific way for a beautiful, brilliant girl to die. So, as a mom, I am concerned about the introduction of alcohol into a residential zone. I have to believe that this is going to increase risks to all the residents of Mountain Road. The question is, how much risk will the winery pose? It's not, will it increase? I think we all have to admit, alcohol is now coming into the area if you issue the permit. The question is, what will be the increase of risk? And I haven't heard an answer to that yet. I've been to so many of the town meetings. I haven't heard any reference to a traffic study. I don't know what the statistics are. You guys are the experts. Maybe one day a traffic study will be done and I will be reassured. But until that day, while I welcome the thought of a beautiful winery up the road from me, I cannot be comfortable with the idea of alcohol being served to the public, especially if they don't know our roads. That ravine is something. I have slid down it to go hiking. I'm good friends with the owner who owns 23 acres of that ravine, and I'm invited to go down there any time I want. And it's so deep that you feel that you are actually in a national park because the sound goes right over your head. You don't hear it. So yeah, it is a deep ravine and it's very special to me for that reason, but I can only imagine what it would do to a driver going down there. So I just want to corroborate that. I wish that there was a beautiful commercial area that the Murdochs liked for their tasting room. I mean, I see all these buildings down on 190. I keep thinking of that beautiful old Hazard built brick building from the Victorian era that used to be a school. I think, oh, you know, is there not some older beautiful building in a commercial zone, not where there are homes and the elderly, where the tasting, the alcoholic consumption could actually take place, not in a place where moms are driving their kids home it's Mountain Road, where in my section is tough enough that local walkers have asked me for permission to cut through my property to get up to there's a road coming off of mountain called Hickory Hill, and local walkers don't want to risk the crest, to go up the hill and deal with it and not be seen. I actually went out to measure the shoulder between the white line and the new curb that the town just put in on the left side of the street facing up the mountain. There's 9 inches before you hit the curb, and then, you know, trees or bushes. And then on the other side where there's a steep hill on my section of it, there's an embankment, there's only 13. So it's really narrow, and local walkers would rather cut through my property to get up to Hickory Hill. And I'd say, fine, terrific, you know, you do that. And then when I want to get to Hickory Hill, I won't deal with Mountain Road either. I'll go through your property. And so we all have this, you know, natural aversion to it. So that's the kind of road that we're now talking about adding alcohol to, or drivers under the influence, whether it's, you know, one glass or whether they bought a bottle there and then they've had a picnic and now you're talking a bottle. I don't know how that gets policed. I don't know how that gets managed. I don't know if Mr. Schober mentioned the history of accidents at the intersection of Mountain and Turnpike. My stone wall has been hit once in the last 20 years. I've had a car come into my front yard. This is from coming down the mountain over that steep hill. My neighbor has had a car hit at the intersection and pushed onto her lawn through her fence. And if it hadn't been for a big tree, it would have ended up in her house. And my coworker was just injured almost 2 weeks ago now in a side-on crash at that intersection. In fact, it was my grandfather who agitated for the four-way stop sign there. He, back in the 70s, there was an accident there and we ended up with fiberglass all over the lawn. And he persuaded the, I guess it's DOT to come and make the change and make it a four-way stop. So there's a long history of danger. One thing the town did try to address in 2016 was a really odd shutter to the pavement when you're trying to brake, when you get to the stop sign. They were not able to resolve the issue. That is a really bad technical explanation of what happens when people try to brake coming down the hill. And I beg your indulgence for it. And I'm sure there are experts here on the call who could describe it better than I, but I do know they tried to fix it, but they gave up because they didn't know where water pipes were underneath the road. And they're like, well, we don't want to hit the water pipes, so we'll just leave it. So in summation, I am really sorry to be like the Cassandra crying out about negative things, but I have lived the reality of people being killed by drunk drivers. And I am concerned for my neighborhood. I moved here after 9/11 when my grandfather died. I thought this will be a wonderful getaway from New York for me, because my children were progressing out of the nest. And this is not what I thought I was getting myself into. I think alcohol in the neighborhood is going to change its character. And I cannot help but be frightened by that. And I have nothing more to add to that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. Commissioner Boletto, do you have any questions?
No, I do not.
Okay, Commissioner McKinney, do you have any questions? I think you're on mute.
I do not.
Thank you. Okay, Attorney Clark, do you have any questions?
Just one question. Ms. Levine, I'm sorry for your loss, and I know you talked about that on Monday. How far away do you live from the entrance to Worthington Pond?
I'd say it's a 4-minute drive.
4-minute drive? So in terms of distance, how far would that be?
It's too steep. I've never walked it. I don't know.
Okay. What's the speed limit on Mountain Road?
I believe it's 35 miles an hour.
Okay. Has anybody concerned about accidents such as yourself on Mountain Road? Have you ever gone to the town with respect to the studies to reduce the speed limit on Mountain Road?
Yes, actually, I have complained. I had troopers here to look at the tire prints when the car came in to my driveway and then drove out again. He went out, he came in over my hedge, he went out over my hedge. So it was, yes, I did have a trooper come, and they set up a traffic study, but it was oddly done on Turnpike, not on Mountain. But I do have that study, yes.
And the speed limit was never changed, I take it?
No.
Okay.
I'm aware of it.
And are you aware of any specific accidents that even impacted your house on the corner of Mountain and Turnpike for somebody who you were specifically aware of was leaving the Worthington Pond property for an event or a walk or anything?
Actually, I don't know who hit my wall, and I don't know who came in over my hedge.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Laban.
Ms. Stiver, can we take a break?
Sure, it's 2:51. We can take is 5 minutes, okay with everyone? We can reconvene in 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, we're back on the record. For the record, it is 2:59. Attorney Clark, I'm turning it to you now. I think you're muted.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm going to let the Murdochs, they had prepared a presentation which they had submitted PowerPoint, and I think that will consist of their testimony. They may have some just follow-up questions for them after they're done. So I'm going to just turn it over to them.
If you guys want to share your screen and go through it, that's fine. I have it in PDF. I don't have it in PowerPoint.
Oh, well, okay, let's see if I can do that somehow.
If you, at the bottom,
Share
there's a
screen,
little,
yep,
yep. And then you can just pick which one you want to use, which screen to use.
okay. Share, and then I'm gonna do from the beginning. Do you see,
Yes,
what do you see?
see the first page, Mark.
Okay. Let me reduce this. Okay, so, hi, again, we're Mark and Karen Murdoch. Karen is here with me. She's gonna interject in a couple cases, maybe, or something, but as was suggested, we acquired Worthington Pond Farm just less than a year ago now, with the intention, as was presented, of hopefully opening a farm winery. And through this presentation, I hope to present our case and just answer some of the petitional issues that were raised and go from there. So first, I mean, I guess I want to address, I think the Remonstrance identified 5 elements that they think were petitioning for rejecting our application, and I hope to address each of those. As you know, we applied for a manufacturing fine permit without entertainment, and this application was certified by the Somers Town Zoning Enforcement Officer, Jen Roy, and it was approved. Our property was inspected and approved by the Somers Fire Marshal, and that was confirmed the validity by the Somers Town Clerk. So that was the process, and that we were advised of that process. And Karen has been in touch with Martin Liquor Commission. So
yes, I contacted the Connecticut Liquor Commission, knowing that the town had not, the town had recently approved zoning regulations to allow a farm winery, but the serving of wine.
we can address that later.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, we'll get that.
But anyway,
Yeah.
so the Liquor Commission assured me that we could apply for the farm winery permit without the patios and entertainment, and apply for an amendment to our application in the future once our special use permit was approved.
Yeah, we'll go over that in a minute. So as far as, I think the first point the Remonstrance said was, we are not a farm. And so what I did on a lot of these slides is actually show you pictures of our property. We do own 4 parcels. Our business name, Somers Mountain Properties, is in both our names. We own 4 parcels, the total of 98 acres, of which you see these vines. There's over 1,800 vines we've planted. We did lease the property for a year before we took it over in October. And according to Somers Town regulations, a tract of land containing 5 acres or more with a minimum of 3 acres principally used for agricultural purposes is considered a farm. The farm term includes farm buildings accessory thereto, or other structures. We are in fact taxed as a farm. Our operations include vines, managing vines, we have flower gardens, and we have hay fields. A picture from the
Google Maps.
Google Maps shows just the principal area where we have our vines today. It actually shows 7.6 acres of land principally used for agricultural purposes right there. In addition, we have 40 more acres of forest land, which we hope to develop, which was previously used to raise cattle. So it has been used as a farm in the past, and the accessory use has been recreational and hosting of private events. We have over 98 acres of contiguous land on those 4 parcels. Worthington Pond Farm is zoned as residential. And Summers zoning regulations permits farms to operate in all 4, and there's 4 zones identified in Summers zoning regulations. All of them allow farming as a matter of right. So we feel point 1 is that they define, they say our property is not a farm is invalid. Point 2 was granting of the permit would be detrimental to public safety. First of all, there's over 40 wineries in the state of Connecticut. And unlike George, we've attended almost all of them. And I would say 90% of them are on back roads and windy roads and unfamiliar territory for most people. So it's unless the commission would have rejected 30 or more other wineries from existing and taking away quite a bit of the agritourism in the state, then I don't, again, that the reason for rejecting our application is invalid. The issues regarding safety of roads we feel is not a concern of the commission, but should be concern of the state highway department or town's highway department. We certainly would comply with all rules and regulations, but we're certainly concerned about the safety of others, and we certainly have to follow serving of alcohol rules and have to abide by that. But again, the safety of the road is not I don't have any control of that, and neither does feel this commission. The issuance of the farm winery manufacturing license really has right now, it's a manufacturing permit primarily, and serving and selling of alcohol has to comply with local regulations as our permit says. And we'll go into that in a minute. Our operations, I show you a picture, there was a picture previously. That's a picture of the land. So as far as our operations go, manufacturing operations are a winery is silent. Fermenting is virtually quiet, and so you can't hear fermenting. And right to farm, everybody has a right to farm. So the manufacturing operations are indoors, so the noise there is invalid. Our application does not include entertainment, so there's no noise being generated from that. And therefore, this application we're providing really has nothing to do with noise. Now the remonstrants have talked about, we'll talk about our other special permit in a few minutes, but I'll get that in a few minutes. But again, specifically with this application, noise is not affected, and therefore point 3 is invalid. Point 4, the zoning, Summers adopted new regulations as of May 1st, and we actually participated and tried to help participate because they've been working on regulations for many years, including allowing farm wineries. They are being contested by who else? Mr. Attorney Schober and his clients. But today, as they stand, they allow farm wineries to operate, and there's no stay in place today. So therefore, the regulations are in effect until such time as the courts determine otherwise. Anything else on that, Karen?
No, go ahead.
I guess I'm not done yet. As far as okay, so as far as our current regulations, I guess maybe we'll talk about commercial regulate. We talked about commercial activities. Farms are commercial activities. So they're all valid in all areas.
I'll just add that there are other commercial venues in the town of Summers, also in the A1 zone, specifically Pleasant View Golf Center and Sunny's Place. Clearly, commercial activities also in the same A1 zone that Worthington Pond Farm is located in.
That have special permits for accessory use to host events. Similar situation. Again, point 5, that the permittee nor the backer has adopted the special use permit. No, we have not. But again, the current regulations allow a farm winery to exist, but the curtailment is currently that we cannot serve or sell alcohol without a special permit. And therefore we have submitted for that special permit at this time. Or since, and actually over a month ago, and we had our first public hearing this past Monday. Finally, ultimately, this is all about resistance to change. You've heard testimony from these people. They've lived there on the property on Mountain Road for over 20 years in many cases, and they're all resistant to change. You know, they want it the same. Well, land's got to be developed, and I'm afraid, you know, most people, if you look at town of Summers, developed a plan of conservation development that wants to maintain open space. This is the ideal situation, and we have ungodly, I mean, how do you want to say? We have enormous support for this. It's just what we're talking about is a couple of people here that are resisting us. And as you heard in testimony today, made by Mr. Schober, they really ultimately comes down to this. And this is quoted in George Schober said on a May 3rd zoning meeting. It says, "We said what the issue was. I don't feel sorry for the Murdochs. I said to their attorney, let's get rid of the special use permit. That will solve the problem. Then you can have your winery. And if that's what you really want to do." They're really trying to blackmail us. They'll accept this winery as provided we turn in our special use permit to host private events. Well, I'm sorry, that devalues our property, and I'm not about to do that. I'm sorry. That's inappropriate for them to ask. So go ahead, let me slow down. Go ahead. So go ahead. You wanted to say something?
No, go ahead.
Just
Go ahead.
okay. So the other thing they were questioning is, you know, whether our winery permit would interfere with events. Well, you know, again, we've visited wineries throughout the state, and many of them, if not almost all of them, host events, host weddings. But they do so, they manage it. They close their operations, they kick everybody out, and they host a private events, and they comply with the law. Now, I don't see that as a problem here. We have two separate special use permits. One is a special use permit, potentially, for the farm winery, which would have to close within the state's limited hours and within the town's limited hours. But the special use permit for hosting weddings is completely separate, and we comply with that rule. We don't have to sell wine or would not sell wine, and we would not sell wine in those events. It come down to that. It was suggested that we held, I have to take exception to this. It was suggested that we held a wedding in August of this year, 2020, and that will confirm that's the case. But it was suggested it was illegally held, and that's absolutely wrong. The state rule, the governor's rule at the time was hosting events, outdoor events of under 100. We complied with that rule, and we complied with all noise regulations and all Summers noise ordinances. Nothing was violated, and I take exception to anything that says we did anything illegally at that event. Finally, it was suggested, and I think inappropriately, that I have no integrity, that you know, was fined back 10 years, almost 10 years ago, for violating an election laws rule. Okay, yeah, yes, I was a volunteer treasurer for Patrice Carson, and yes, Attorney McKinney, yes, I was a treasurer, volunteer, and Miss Carson did place an advertisement in the paper that did not include the statement paid for by the committee to elect Patrice Carson, and I did take accountability and responsibility and paid the fine as I was required to do so. So I don't see anything, again, I did nothing wrong. I complied with the rules, I complied with the law. And I took to responsibility for my peers'
Actions.
errors. But, and that's all I have to say. I mean, I think, you know, Karen, do you have any wrap statements?
Yeah, I think Mark hit on all the points that we wanted to discuss. You know, we just wanted to reiterate some of the other farm wineries in the state that have events, that have commercial operations. There's a number of farm wineries that have stores associated with them. So, you know, the commercial operation in a residential zone is, you know, something that's been allowed in other properties in the town of Summers. So we believe that everything in our application fits all of the requirements of the state regulations for a farm winery permit, and we don't see anything that is remiss, and we don't see any reason why the commission shouldn't grant us this permit.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Commissioner McKinney, do you have any questions for the Murdochs?
I do not.
Okay, Commissioner Boletto?
I guess I do. So your intention is to have a tasting room at some point?
Yeah, sure, you would. But we realized that the town currently, we need a special permit to do that.
Got it. And the other thing is you keep saying no entertainment. I can't imagine that, not that that's an issue. I'm just trying to get a clarification. I can't imagine that you're going to have weddings or other options on site, including a tasting room on a Saturday without some type of entertainment.
Well, there's two separate things. This farm winery permit, and again, we wouldn't be opening, the earliest we wouldn't open until April because we're manufacturing. You know, it takes months to make wine. But it's two separate things. The entertainment, we currently have weddings, but caterers are hired, they serve, they have their own license, and they bring in their own entertainment. We operate as a separate business. As a winery, it would be entirely separate entity. We wouldn't be offering entertainment as part of the winery operations and tasting room operations.
I'll just try to clarify. The Summers zoning regulation that was just passed requires that a special use permit is in place in order to have the serving of the tastings and the music. So we are currently in the process of applying for that special use permit. However, in order to get our wine started, because if you know the wine business at all, fall is when grapes are harvested, and we couldn't afford to miss this harvest season. So we agreed to put in our application without the serving and without the entertainment so that we could get the manufacturing permit now, which we were granted in September, the provisional permit, so that we can take advantage of this year's harvest, which we are doing now, so that we can make and age wine so that we will have it available for sale in the spring once we do have a special use permit in place to serve.
Perfect. That's all I wanted was an explanation of what everybody was saying, but you just
Yep.
explained it all. Thank you.
Thank you. Hope that helped clarify things.
It did. Thank you very much.
Okay, Attorney Schober, do you have any questions for the Murdochs?
Go ahead. Shoot.
Sorry, I was muted. I presume you can hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, I do have just a couple of questions. Either Mr. or Mrs. Murdoch, are you aware as to whether or not the summer zoning regulations permit as a use in residential zone actually permit golf centers and golf courses?
Yes, they do.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all I have, actually.
Okay. At this point, we can move on to closing statements. We'll start with you, Mr. Schober.
All right. So I just want to reiterate the points that we made, which is that this this facility is not appropriate for a winery in the present condition of Mountain Road and the sight lines, and also with the existing special use permit that's in place, allowing activities until midnight. I just don't understand how this can be policed or monitored. And I hold on to the opinion that Mr. Murdoch is not a proper permittee or backer for this facility. Thank you.
Okay, Attorney Clark.
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioner members. Thank you for your time and effort with respect to this. We appreciate your patience and understanding. I've known Mark and Karen Murdoch for a few years now. They have made this project one of their life's goals. This is a dream of theirs. And they looked at other towns, they looked at other places, they explored other avenues with other towns. But they ultimately came to the conclusion that they wanted to do this in their own town, in the town of Summers. Summers, you know, by its own character and nature, if you were to get on its website, is largely a town based in agricultural. Tobacco is still, notwithstanding what Mr. Schober says, a very, very residential / commercial farming agricultural town. If you have not been to Worthington Pond or been to this area, it is the perfect place for a farm winery. It has historical agricultural value. It does meet with the town's long-term plan of conservation and development and the town's enhancement and desire to have continued agricultural areas. The Murdochs have personally invested their life savings into, or their, you know, substantial savings into purchasing this property to fulfill their dream. They do that because they believe strongly that this is a great location. Mr. Schober didn't talk about this, Mr. Pryor didn't talk about this, but at Monday's hearing, there was numerous people that talked about they were in support of this. The first hearing that they had in reference to the zoning application more than a year and a half ago, probably almost, you know, I'm not going to say 10 to 1, but I'd say 8 to 1, spoke in favor of having some entertainment in place in Summers where they could go and hang out. And with all due respect to Miss Labine, having a tasting room 5 miles away from the farm is just incongruent with the concept of having a farm winery. The whole thing is about having that experience where you go where the crops are grown, you go where the hops is grown. If it's a brewery, you go to where the winery takes place. That's why I brought up the examples of Kent Falls, for example, Crystal Ridge, Hops on the Hill. Those are all farm wineries, farm breweries. We could all debate whether the access to those places is perfect, and it's certainly not Route 2 or Route 91 or even, you know, Route 44 for that example, but they're in where locations where farms are. And historically, if you look at the map for Summers and look at where the farms are located, they're located in agricultural zones. So, and as Attorney Schober conceded, you know, a farm is a commercial operation and enterprise. The Murdochs were specifically, as they just said and clarified for the commission, they were specifically told that they couldn't apply for entertainment as part of this application because it needed to be approved as part of their special use permit. And they explained to the reasons why they did that. That doesn't suggest anything sinister or untruthful from Mr. Murdoch's perspective. The majority of the people that spoke on Monday talked about Mr. Murdoch's good character and candidness and contributions to the community. And this is just one more of those contributions that he wants to make. As to the application itself, I don't think we heard a lot today about the application. I don't think we heard a lot today about the specifics about why this wouldn't be a good location for a farm winery and brewery. We heard about traffic concerns. We heard about concerns over, you know, a violation of a sign in a political election and other matters that are really not matters for this commission. And I gave great deference to the commission because I understand the commission does have deference, and that to Mr. Schober as well. But those are really matters for the special use. Those are matters for the zoning and planning for commission before the town of Summers. This is not an appellate court for the planning commission. This is a commission that should deal with the issuance of this farm winery and farm winery permit. And we believe that it should issue it. We believe that we're qualified, and we believe we've submitted sufficient information with respect to that. If there's a change in the circumstances surrounding the special use permit or limitations that are put on it by the town of Summers, or curtailments that the town of Summers has the right to put on it, well, then so be it. That's what the Murdochs are going to have to address and deal with. But as to the permit to seek to manufacture and those things that are permitted under 30-16B, as we talked about earlier, those are the things that the Murdochs are seeking approval for. The only thing they're not seeking approval for, because they were told specifically they couldn't, was entertainment and acoustical music in the patio. So having said that, I think there's been more than ample evidence to support that. If there needs to be some other issue about the existing special use permit, I don't think there's been any testimony that the Murdochs have in any way violated the state statutes. They've not manufactured, sold, or intended to sell anything that they've either grown or produced, or started to grow or produce at this facility without getting the proper licensing from this commission. So there's nothing that should impair their ability to have this permit issued to them today. And we believe the rest of this is just a concerted effort by Mr. Pryor, Mr. Schober, and a few people in town who just don't want to see their neighborhood change. It's a beautiful property. It would be great to keep it as a beautiful property for both the winery and both for some events that would take place there. That's really an issue for the town of Summers to address. But we talked about, Mr. Schober talked about whether he'd like to see big houses in there. Well, why don't we put affordable housing in there? Why don't we bring 50, 60 units in there? I don't think any of the neighbors really want that. Neighbors get the benefit of having access to this property. They get the access to it for ice skating, for hiking, for fishing. There's canoes and kayaks that allow the public to go there and basically enjoy this property that my clients own. And this is a win-win as far as I'm concerned for the town of Summers. They get private development for the benefit of the public. And I don't think there's a lot of wineries in the state where people can go to and hike and walk and hang out and have a glass of wine and do both recreational activities and enjoy the benefits of a farm winery or brewery at the same time. So this is actually probably a fairly unique situation. And I just would urge the commission to strongly consider their application, approve it, and let this process continue to move on. And if Mr. Schober and his clients have further concerns, they're clearly going to be addressed. We have a follow-up public hearing with respect to the special use permit, and I'm sure that process will continue to evolve as the other processes have with respect to this matter. And again, I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Clark. Just one housekeeping
Madam
issue.
Hearing Officer, I'm sorry, George Schober. I just wanted to respond to all the testimony.
Wait, excuse me. I want to make sure that the Murdoch's presentation was entered as an exhibit. Attorney Anderson, was that ever marked?
It was not.
Okay, so do the Murdochs wish to have that entered into the record?
Yes.
Okay,
Please, yes.
we'll mark that as, I'm not sure where we're at.
It could be a commission D as in dog.
That's fine.
Go there.
Okay, we'll have the presentation marked as Commission Exhibit D. Okay. Mr. Schober, 2 minutes. Did you have something else you want?
Yes, it'll take less than that. It's just that Attorney Clark testified. That wasn't a closing, that was testimony. There was no evidence about support of other people. There was no evidence that this complies with the plan of conservation and development. In fact, I would argue it does not. There's no evidence about the majority of people who spoke on Monday night being in favor of it. There's no evidence about access to the property. There's no evidence that it's a win-win, a private development for benefit of the public. I mean, all I heard was testimony, and I think it should be stricken.
Okay, well, thank you. At this point, we are going to close our hearing. I want to thank everyone who spoke today, and the commission will be meeting shortly and rendering a decision. And again, I thank you all. For the record, it is 3:28 in the afternoon, and this hearing is now closed.
Thank you. Have a nice
Thank
day.
you, commissioners.
Bye now.